Hi guys, Amanda Decker here. As you can see, I'm at home, not in the clinic, and it's Christmas time when this is being recorded. My Christmas tree's behind me, stockings back there on the fireplace. I hope you guys are having a great holiday season and getting prepared for time with your families. Today, I'm going to broach a topic that I haven't talked about before. It's one nobody likes to talk about until they have to talk about it. And then it's like, please tell me what to do. And that's constipation. So, constipation is very common. It's frequently out in the population. I don't know the exact numbers, but I feel like half of my patients would tell me they don't have regular bowel movements. When you do any nutritional change, dietary change, it can kind of shock the gut, and you can either have a lot of bowel movements or you can get really, really constipated. When you're going on a low carb diet or a carb restricted diet, constipation is a known side effect or known thing that can happen. That's typically due for a couple different reasons. So, one is when you first go on that way of eating, your body sheds liquid like crazy. Eudiuresis is the fancy medical word for it, but that's just your body shedding liquid like crazy. If you supplement or you start adding extra water, that kind of mitigates that problem. But what happens when your body starts shedding fluid is the electrolytes follow the sodium, potassium, magnesium, and a lot of times our foods are already deficient in these things. So, what we recommend at DMA Weight and Wellness is that you supplement with fluids and electrolytes from day one of your nutritional change to a low carb diet. Our favorite way to do that is with salted broth, chicken or beef broth, salted to taste, but there's a multitude of different electrolyte options that are out there. There's one called Element, LMNT, that is very specific for those on a low carb diet. There's also a little line at Keto Chow that is just capsules, like you can swallow your electrolyte in capsule form and then drink the water if you don't like adding electrolytes or don't like drinks that have it added in it. But I'd say 8 times out of 10, if you just supplement your electrolytes and increase your fluid, not an issue, or it's an issue that your body quickly adjusts to and everything gets better. The other thing is when you're increasing the fat in your diet, it actually can slow the digestion process through the gut. It makes you feel full longer and it takes your gut more time to move that through. However, your body's also using more of what you put in it, so you're making less poop. So sometimes you're feeling like you're constipated only because it's not been enough days since you went, but it's not painful to pass. It's easy to pass, and it's really not constipation. It's just you're using more and things are moving a little bit more slower through there, so you're being full sooner and you're not eating as much. So, one, are you really constipated? Two, are you supplementing your electrolytes? And if you're really constipated and you're supplementing your electrolytes and you're still having issues, well, add some magnesium. I like magnesium citrate, about 400 to 500 milligrams at bedtime. It also helps you to rest, relax, and sleep. Um, that usually will take care of it. You can also add a little bit of MCT oil or coconut oil, about a teaspoon a day. Just take it and it actually smooths things out and helps retain more moisture to the stool so it's easier to pass. Worst case scenario, you're hydrating, you're doing your electrolytes, you're taking some magnesium, you maybe tried some MCT oil and still not going to the bathroom. Well, you can do a dose of Miralax. That 10th time out of 10 that didn't respond to all those other things, if you do a couple doses of Miralax, you relieve the issue, and then you still are hydrating and doing your electrolytes, it doesn't come back and it's not an issue from there on. So, those are my recommendations on how to fix it and why it happens in the first place. But let's not just take my word for it. Let's go look and see what the research says. And traditionally, and what I told people for probably the first half of my career is if you're constipated, add more fiber. And we have repeated this over and over and over again to our clients, thinking that it was going to fix the problem, but nothing ever got fixed. And if you think about it, it doesn't make sense. If you're constipated, things are moving through your gut a lot slower. Well, what is fiber? It's bulk and it's not digestible, meaning you don't get it out into your body. It stays in the intestines and makes its way all the way out. So if your intestines are moving slower and you add more bulk to it, then you've got a bigger bulk moving through the same slow pipe system. It's just a recipe for disaster. So I want to point out two different studies, and both of these are from the World Journal of Gastroenterology. One of them is a little newer than the other one. The first one came out in 2012, I believe it was, and it's a meta-analysis. So basically, what it is these researchers looked at all of the available research up to that point and looked for things that had constipation mentioned and stool frequency, things of that nature. And they found 5 studies that they added in this meta-analysis and compiled all the data from those 5 studies. One thing that I think is cool is the 2 researchers that did this, they compiled the data separately and then came together and compared their data. So they were making sure that they found everything and then it matched up by doing 2 separate reviews and then pulling it together. So overall, 5 studies were looked at for the criteria, and these were all high quality randomized controlled trials that they included. So these are the best of the best research that they looked at. And so what they found is that dietary intake of fiber helps to increase stool frequency. So it makes sense if you're adding more stuff in your gut that doesn't get absorbed and gets passes out, when it eventually comes out of your body, you're going to have more of it. So it increases stool frequency in patients with constipation, but it does not improve consistency, treatment success. It doesn't reduce the amount of laxatives used, and it doesn't decrease the pain from having a bowel movement. So you poop more, but you still require laxatives. It still hurts and it's hard from increasing fiber, is what it found. I will post the link so you can go read it yourself. It's a free article online. You can read the whole study if you would like, but basically looking at 5 studies, and all 5 studies were consistent that it made you poop more, but didn't necessarily increase any of the symptoms of constipation. This other article, I like it a lot better. It's a research study, and it was published also in 2012. Oh, I thought one was newer, but they're not. They're both from 2012. So we've known this information for a long time. I think that makes it even worse. This is an actual research study. And what they did is they looked at 63 individuals with idiopathic constipation, meaning they have constipation. We don't know why they have constipation. It's not because their intestines were damaged. It's not because of a medication. It is, we truly don't have a cause for them having constipation. So, what they did for this intervention is they took all 63 persons, they asked them for the first 2 weeks to go on a no fiber diet. What is a no fiber diet? Well, it's kind of like the carnivore diet. You're eating meat because meat does not have fiber. You're eating fats, but you are not including fiber. So, no fiber at all for 2 weeks. And then they asked people after that to reduce the amount of fiber or keep the amount of fiber to an intake that they individually found acceptable. So start increasing your fiber and stop when it's not acceptable to you any longer. They recorded at 1 month and 6 months these metrics. So they looked at the total dietary fiber intake, how much do people include, their symptoms of constipation, was it easier for them to have a bowel movement, was there any bleeding, was there any bloating, was there any pain? And so they looked at that at 1 month and they looked at it at 6 months. Of these 63 cases, most of them were women. There were some men, but most were women, and the average age was about 47 years of age. Here's the results. And this blew me away when I read it because, like I said, for the first half of my career, I said, just eat more fiber, add more fiber, have some Metamucil. But here's the results. So at the 6 month mark, 41 patients remained on the no fiber diet. So these are people that had been struggling with constipation for a very long time. They removed fiber from their diet and they chose to keep fiber out of their diet because, I'm assuming, of how it reacted with their body. So 41 out of the 63 decided to stay on the no fiber diet. 16 out of the 63 remained on a reduced fiber diet or a low fiber diet. And 6 went back on a higher fiber diet, but they noted this was for personal reasons or for religious purposes, not because they were not getting symptom results or relief from the reduced fiber. Of the patients who stopped the dietary fiber, they had significant improvements in their symptoms, while those who continued the dietary fiber or added it back had no change in their symptoms. So, of those that stopped the fiber altogether, so the carnivore diet essentially, they had an increase in bowel movement frequency. They were going to the bathroom. Let's see, I'm going to read this so I get it right. So they increased from having a bowel movement every 3 to 4 days to every day. So no fiber, they poop daily. Fiber, they pooped every 3 to 4 days. When they looked at the ones who had reduced fiber intake, so they brought some fiber back in after the initial 2 weeks of no fiber, they increased from going every 4 days to going every 1 to 2 days. And those who remained on the high fiber diet had an average bowel movement of every 6 days. That sounds miserable. Miserable. So, for the no fiber and the reduced fiber diets, they also saw that there was a significant reduction in bloating and straining. So, get this, for the people who had no fiber in their diet, they reported zero bloating and zero straining to get the stool out. For those on the reduced fiber diet, they did report about a 31% bloating and about a 43% straining. But for the people who added the fiber back, 100% of them had bloating and 100% of them had straining from adding the fiber back. So the conclusion of this study that we've known about since 2012 is that idiopathic constipation and all of its symptoms, the bloating, the pain, the bleeding, everything that can come along with that, can be effectively reduced by stopping or even lowering dietary fiber intake. You may say, well, all right, I have GI issues. I have diverticulitis or a history of that. Well, okay, let's think about this. The research is showing us that adding more fiber keeps you constipated, keeps you bloated, and keeps things painful. If you have diverticulitis, you've got those little herniations in your colon wall, things are out, poking out. And when things move slow and you're constipated, it's when you're more likely to get a flare and have infection and things like that kick in. So, say you were to go on a reduced fiber diet and you were to supplement your electrolytes and take a magnesium supplement, and maybe in the beginning stay on your Miralax and then wean off of that because the dietary change can worsen it a little bit. Maybe you don't have to worry about that anymore. Maybe you don't have flares of the diverticula anymore. Maybe you don't have pain anymore. And from what I understand, I'm not someone who's suffered with this, but if you have daily pain, bloating, rectal bleeding, misery every day, and you can change that just by what you eat and ignoring the traditional medical advice of fiber, might be worth a try. Now, one thing I will say is a lot of people feel good when they eat fiber. And if you're someone that feels great on fiber, okay. And fiber does help with fullness in a lot of people, but so does eating a high protein, higher natural healthy fats diet too, because of how it acts in the gut. So I hope you found this conversation interesting, informative, and maybe not so embarrassing as coming in and talking to your healthcare provider. I will list these two studies for you to go through and review. One of them, the meta-analysis, that's got a lot of people in that study. The second one, that's a controlled study, it has a low volume in there, or a low number of people, but I think it's still quite relevant, and it's pretty significant because of the results that are there. The results stand for themselves. You can't argue with that. All right, guys, happy holidays, and I hope that next year is a healthy, wonderful year for you. Bye.